Layoffs is what's really kind of troubling a lot of people. I mean, we knew that they'd be coming. We knew that the credit crisis was going to exacerbate that. And frankly, for some people, starting in the beginning of the year, they'd started to feel kind of the layoff situation in their hometowns. But just this week, Chrysler closing a plant in Delaware and stopping a shift, idling a shift in Toledo. GM job cuts. Goldman Sachs cutting some 3,200 workers. You've also got Merck cutting jobs. I mean, national cities. So whether it's banks, financial companies, car dealers, car production lines, all kinds of different industries are being felt here with the job cuts, and we know the latest jobless claims 478,000 was a lot. So let's take a look at the whole country as a whole. MoodysEconomy.com has put together sort of like a temperature gauge of these different states and whether or not they are in expansion, whether they are in a recession, whether they are at risk of being in a recession. Now, they're not calling a recession right now for the overall economy. Of course, we don't really know that until it's done, really. But this gives you a sense of where you are in the country and what MoodysEconomy.com says you're probably feeling there. You can see there's not a lot of green. There really isn't. And there's an awful lot of red in some of those states, Reggie, that are battleground states. So for people who are going to be going to the polls, in some cases, it's literally their financial future that is on their mind when they go and cast their vote. And that's remarkable how that's changed over the past year or so. And because it is 12 days before the election, I have to point out that the senior economist at MoodysEconomy.com is an unpaid advisor to the McCain campaign. It's this time of the election cycle when every little detail like that we like to disclose. But
yeah.
it doesn't dispute any of the things that are on those maps, of course, or any of those numbers.
No, and as a matter of fact, it actually. If everything is true, it actually would make it much more difficult for the McCain campaign if the philosophy that we talked about just yesterday is true, that folks who are looking at the numbers are more likely to vote for Barack Obama than John McCain. When you see these foreclosure numbers going up, when you see the jobless numbers. In fact, let's look at the foreclosure numbers because this is pretty remarkable. I mean, I knew it was bad, but when I heard the percentage jump, it was wow.
Yeah, up 71%. So in the third quarter, 765,000 filings. Now, a filing can be everything from in default or anywhere in the process. Now, what I did was I took last month only, and I took that number and I just zeroed in on just last month how many people every day lost their house. Not got behind or got a notice on the front door or are negotiating with the bank. How many people got a padlock on the front door by the sheriff? 2,710 people every day last month lost their home. Every day. Now, if that's just how many homes were lost. That affects how many families. That's 2,700 families. You're talking about 10,000 people who their home is gone. If you take family of four, for example. Yep, every single day.
That is incredible when you put it, when you break it down like that.
Right. I mean, we're numb, right? We're numb to some of these numbers. Up 74,000, the biggest since September 11th. All of these numbers, Americans are bombarded with these numbers, all of them grim. But I think when you think about it in terms of how many people every day are losing their home and how many people every day are losing their job, you can see those are the two most fundamental things for someone's personal economy, which is why those battleground states, it is such a toss-up who people are going to believe when they go into that voting booth. I mean, it's really very fundamental for a lot of these voters.
Okay, and speaking of grim news, since I have you here, I'm going to ask you about Alan Greenspan, because we know that he's going to be speaking in front of Congress this morning, and we'll be, interested to see his full remarks. But it sounds like he is going to come out and say that this is not only, I think he's calling it a once-in-a-century credit tsunami.
Credit tsunami.
I mean, to use those words, those are powerful words. And I'm wondering, obviously he's not our current Fed chief, right? But he's someone who has had great influence over this country for many years. So how important is it when he comes out and says something like that?
It is important because there's also this very kind of conflicted interpretation of him now. There's the book of him, the best-selling book called The Maestro, and he's a guy who presided over, pretty much the best expansion in the American economy in the 90s, in modern history. Someone who kept interest rates quite low after the dot-com bubble burst, right? And now people are saying, wait a second, maybe some of those policies during his tenure helped lay the groundwork for what we're seeing here today. Maybe his wholehearted endorsement and push of homeownership for as many people as possible helped kind of lay the groundwork for what has now been obviously an absolute disaster. I'm quite interested to hear what people are going to be asking him about, and whether he's going to be blamed, or whether he's going to be congratulated, or whether he's going to be asked as sort of like the eminence grise for what he thinks we should do now. I mean, there are conflicted opinions really about Alan Greenspan and what his role is overall. There are still people who say that he is one of the, if not the best financial mind, who's ever held that post. And then there are others who are kind of digging through the steps that got us here and wondering if maybe there were some inadvertent things that happened that led us here. I don't know. I mean, what do you think about that? I'm interested in what you think, Reggie. I mean, do you think that? I'll tell you what I've been hearing. I've been hearing that there's blame to be shared in a lot of different quarters, and the Fed is there, congressional leadership is there, the White House, homeowners, consumers, mortgage lenders. I mean, rating agencies, you can go through to any of those people and kind of zero in on something and say, well, that was folly, and that was part of a whole perfect storm of things that led us here.